This is Cronkite News.
There's a real opportunity here to shine a light on the needs of Indigenous people here in the United States.
The efforts being made to help Native American communities struggling to combat COVID-19. Plus, a family is speaking out about the effects of concussions on mental health and how they believe it led to their son's death.
To me, it's more about giving people their right to vote. Let's let the people of Arizona vote and decide whether or not they feel that people deserve a second chance.
And second chances. The ballot initiative underway right now to grant some inmates early releases amidst the pandemic.
Cronkite News starts now.
Welcome to this Cronkite News Update. I'm Sam Brennan. This morning, the Arizona Department of Health Services confirmed another 104 known coronavirus deaths and over 2,100 additional cases. It's only the second time they've reported more than 100 fatalities in a day due to the virus, without noting the amount included death certificate matching from older cases. As of now, the total number of COVID-19 cases in our state stands at nearly 166,000, and the number of deaths at over 3,400. Meanwhile, inpatient hospitalizations and intensive care unit occupancy dropped to their lowest levels in more than a month. Several Indigenous communities have been battling COVID-19, with case numbers in several areas still high and resources scarce. Cronkite News reporter Abigail Verwick shows us how an international nonprofit is working to serve the Navajo Nation during the pandemic.
An airplane with a mission. To bring much-needed supplies to the remote communities struggling with COVID-19 within the Navajo Nation. The Navajo Air Bridge program meets this need both on the ground and in the sky. It's how AirServe International and Navajo and Hopi Families COVID-19 Relief Fund have joined forces to distribute aid.
We knew early on that our communities lacked the infrastructure and the resources to protect themselves from the virus.
Weekly flights carry about 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of donated cargo, consisting of basic necessities such as water, personal protection equipment, hygiene products, hand washing stations, and more. According to the Navajo Health Department, there are currently 8,912 positive COVID-19 cases. For months now, the coronavirus has hit this often overlooked population incredibly hard.
There's a real opportunity here to shine a light on the needs of Indigenous people here in the United States.
Organizers say this program is helping families receive the items they need without risking exposure to the virus in off-reservation stores.
The relief effort that we're providing is a quintessential example of, helping each other during a difficult time when communities really step up to help each other.
This program is currently serving over 18,000 households by delivering both tangible relief and some much-needed hope. In Phoenix, Abigail Verwick, Cronkite News.
The Air Bridge program will continue transporting resources for the next 3 weeks with the goal of reaching remote communities in the Navajo and Hopi nations. With Arizona showing signs of progress in the fight against COVID-19, former director of the Arizona Department of Health Services, Will Humble, pointed to mandatory mask policies and the closure of nightclubs and bars for the slowed spread. Humble, who held the position from 2009 to 2015, said if Arizona wants to keep trending in a positive direction, people need to continue following guidance from public health officials. He also believes keeping nightclubs closed and forcing more strict compliance on bars and patrons if they reopen will help Arizona's numbers. Governor Doug Ducey gave local governments the ability to enact mask policies on June 17th, with bars, nightclubs, movie theaters, gyms, and water parks being shut down on June 29th. The latest executive order from the governor states that order will be looked at every 2 weeks to determine whether it needs to be extended. Meanwhile, hundreds of Arizona schools will not have liability coverage related to COVID-19 claims once in-person instruction begins. Cronkite News reporter Madison Atkinson spoke with Arizona's largest insurers for schools to explain why.
School districts throughout the state are worried about COVID-19 spreading in the classroom and potential lawsuits being filed. The Arizona School Risk Retention Trust announced they will not cover claims for lawsuits resulting from COVID-19.
During our process of getting reinsurance, our reinsurance specifically excluded organic pathogens from the process. And so to be able to continue our process, which is to get our reinsurance backers, we had to exclude it. And so it has been excluded, and it's nothing completely unusual as the flu and other things are not covered.
The trust is covering some costs for schools related to COVID-19.
We do provide, the Risk Retention Trust does provide a prepaid legal program that will provide the legal support to support claims. And we also have a provision that if a classroom is deemed to be infected in that sense or having a claim against it, we will cover the cost of the disinfecting of that classroom.
The trust has provided templates and acknowledgement forms to parents to protect districts from legal COVID-19 claims.
So people understand as they're coming back in person what that means. They've always provided waivers for extracurricular activities, other activities that may have some extra liability or risk involved in it. We've modified those to include some COVID language into it.
The trust is meeting next week to discuss a COVID-19 Pacific waiver and acknowledgement form. The federal government is looking at providing waivers and blanket waivers for school districts, and Governor Doug Ducey has written a letter to the congressional delegation to help support that. Madison Atkinson, Cronkite News.
The Arizona School Risk Retention Trust serves 240 school districts and community colleges throughout Arizona. Monday evening, ASU President Michael Crow sent an email to students detailing the university's plan to return to campus in the fall. The university is continuing with their plan to start classes on August 20th, offering both in-person and remote learning classes. Crow stated that students and employees have access to cleaning supplies and testing at no charge. He also said that while the university hopes to not alter plans, the administration, quote, will be prepared to adapt and pivot as needed. From Arizona to Florida, antibody testing has become a crucial measure in tracking the spread of the coronavirus, but getting results can take time. So the CDC has unveiled new laboratory robots to help get results from those antibody tests more quickly. From the loading of the sample through the detection of antibodies, the robots can test more than 3,600 samples a day, compared to about 400 samples a public health scientist can test in that same time period. The CDC says the robots will improve antibody testing capacity and allow for more data to help in the fight against COVID-19.
This is our serology test, is the orange part of the graph.
What we've seen is a pretty significant increase in the percentage of people testing positive for antibodies.
A serology or antibody test looks for the presence of antibodies, which are specific proteins made in response to infections. As COVID-19 threatens the safety of inmates and staff in the Arizona Department of Corrections, families with incarcerated loved ones are pushing the state to release certain offenders early. So far, they have not swayed officials, but in November, voters may have a chance to decide whether certain nonviolent offenders should be able to earn time off of their sentences. Caitlin Keenahan takes a look at the challenges of political activism in the midst of a pandemic.
Offenders in Arizona must serve at least 85% of their court-imposed sentences under the state's truth in sentencing law, which is one of the harshest in the country.
It doesn't matter if you have a good disciplinary record. It doesn't matter what you've done to rehabilitate yourself while you're incarcerated.
But prison reformers are working to modify the law through the Second Chances Rehabilitation and Public Safety Act. The measure could cut up to 50% off of the sentences of nonviolent offenders through earned early release credits. Participants would be expected to maintain good behavior and take advantage of available rehabilitation programs.
If it helps one person and one family get back to their communities and get back to their families quicker, I'm going to fight for it.
Supporters needed 237,645 signatures by July 2nd to get the Second Chances initiative on the November ballot.
I thought it would be really simple, really easy. We'd probably get 4 times as many signatures as we needed. And then, of course, in a matter of weeks, the world completely changed and got flipped upside down.
The coronavirus pandemic pushed people indoors and behind masks.
Suddenly, yeah, we were worried.
Like most people during the pandemic, they adjusted. Volunteers took to the hot summer streets of Arizona to host drive-through petition signings.
The people that came and signed for the petition, really all they had to do was just drive up.
I mean, this was truly a grassroots movement of people who have been fighting on behalf of their loved ones.
Registered voter in Pima County. I am. Sweet.
That's why we ended up submitting nearly 400,000 signatures. So it wasn't the million that I thought it was going to be, but it was nearly twice as many as we needed.
But the feeling of relief lasted only a moment. On July 16th, Pima County Attorney Barbara Lawal filed a formal complaint against the initiative. Arizona petitions are legally required to include a summary of up to 100 words. The summary for the Second Chances Act states the act will only apply to people convicted of non-dangerous offenses. Lawal claims the summary is thoroughly misleading because it does not detail the types of crimes the initiative classifies as non-dangerous. Lawal did not reply to call-seeking comment. However, her complaint seeks to throw the measure off the November ballot.
To me, it's more about giving people their right to vote. Let's let the people of Arizona vote and decide whether or not they feel that people deserve a second chance.
And Gerald Williams Sr., who was previously incarcerated, explains why the initiative is close to his heart.
I continue to get a second chance every day if I fail the Lord when I wake up and I do something that's not pleasing to him. We all need a second chance, or a third or a fourth.
On July 23rd, prosecutors opposed to the initiative convinced the Legislative Council to require a disclaimer next to second chances on the November ballot. Caitlin Keenahan, Cronkite News.
This story is made possible through a partnership between the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and the Center for the Study of Religion and Conflict at Arizona State University, with the support of the Henry Luce Foundation. Authorities say a fire that destroyed part of the Arizona and Maricopa County Democratic Party headquarters was an act of arson, but no arrests have been made. Investigators say surveillance video that has not been released confirmed the fire was human caused. Nobody was hurt, but the fire destroyed computers, tablets, phone banking equipment, campaign literature, and years of documents. That's according to the Maricopa County Democratic Chair. In just a few days after the blaze, $30,000 in donations were raised to help those impacted. In less than 100 days, we'll make our picks for president. But if the presidential election were today, polls suggest bad news for President Donald Trump, especially in crucial battleground contests. Recent polling shows a battleground boom for presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden, with President Trump trailing in every single swing state from the 2016 election. Even traditionally Republican-friendly states like Arizona and Texas show potential problems for the president. Right now, the dominant issue for voters is the coronavirus crisis. Polls consistently show Biden scoring higher than President Trump on who is more trusted to lead during the pandemic.
We will achieve a victory over the virus by unleashing America's scientific genius.
He's quit on you, and he's quit on this country.
However poor things look for Trump, conventional wisdom proves that much can happen between now and November 3rd, especially in an unconventional election year. The Phoenix City Council unanimously approved a new plan to address the city's housing shortage. The Housing Phoenix Plan aims to create and preserve 50,000 homes by 2030. According to the city, the plan incorporates 9 different policy initiatives that will be implemented throughout a 2 to 2.5 year process. The initiatives include providing different zoning incentives for affordable housing developers, increasing resources for developers, and creating an education campaign to communicate the importance of affordable housing to the community. Housing development specialist Cherie Bushi says the plan will address the need for more housing at reasonable costs.
We just really need to build as much as we can so that we can provide the housing that folks really need in our community and housing that's affordable to them. So the more we can get out there, I think the more supply will be available and the less demand, which will hopefully help stabilize the market so that we're not seeing that year-over-year increase every time we look at the market.
Experts say issues such as homelessness and evictions may also be increasing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to Bushi, the new plan will give those who are affected a chance to relocate and readjust to new circumstances. Bushi says the goal is to substantially increase the number of available and affordable housing options for all Phoenix residents at all income levels. Last night, police arrested 7 people after a Tempe Black Lives Matter protest turned chaotic. The demonstration started out peacefully, but quickly escalated once Tempe police ordered the roughly 200 protesters to get off a major roadway. Officers then began pepper spraying demonstrators who didn't stay on the sidewalks and detaining people. One officer was reportedly injured after being hit in the face by some kind of projectile. During the 3-hour event, organizers highlighted the police-involved shooting deaths of Dalvin Hollins and Deion Johnson. A family is taking their pain and using it to speak out on mental health issues surrounding concussions. Cronkite News reporter Jackson Lauderay reports on the legal and health repercussions of college football.
Jason Franklin wanted a chance to play football at a high level. He got that chance at ASU. According to a lawsuit his father filed on July 13th, there was a downside. Franklin received his first concussion in the winter of 2012. In August of 2014, he got his second. And in September of 2014, he received his last 2. He described one of those concussions to Cronkite News in 2017.
It didn't even look like that hard of a hit, quite honestly. It was a normal impact for the game of football. It didn't look like something that should be noted, but even the play before that, I actually had a really hard hit, and this one tripled the impact to my head from that first initial hit.
On July 14th, 2018, Jason died by suicide. After his passing, Jason's mom, Jan, wrote about her son's life and death in a blog post for the Concussion Legacy Foundation, an organization that supports those affected by concussions. She wrote that she noticed a swift change in Jason's behavior after his brain injuries. Chris Norwitzki, co-founder and CEO of the foundation, says more needs to be done to protect players like Jason.
Right now, there's no long-term medical care. There's no, they're not paid for the risk they're taking with their brain. I feel like college football players are exploited because there's a huge money-making operation around them.
The Boston University CTE Center examined Franklin's brain and determined he had CTE, in which a player's brain degenerates because of extensive hits. Studies have shown it can cause mental and emotional health problems.
We didn't know much about it. When we started our collaboration with Boston University and the VA, 1,000 brains donated, about 2/3 of them have been positive for CT. We've rewritten the books on what we understand about how these hits to the head lead to brain disease.
Now Franklin's family has sued ASU and the NCAA. The suit claims concussion protocols were mismanaged. Neither ASU nor the NCAA have responded to requests for interviews. CTE concerns stretch beyond football, with concussions occurring in sports like hockey, cheerleading, and even volleyball. Stephanie Cahill says that she sustained 3 concussions over the course of 6 years while playing volleyball. She decided that advocating for mental health was one of the most important things she could do to help.
What I think the most important thing I do is I tell my story. And I am completely 100% honest with every single aspect of it, probably to a fault. I still deal with a lot of the problems, and I do not claim to be fully healed and recovered. I do have mental health problems even today. And I'm learning to cope with them every single step of the way.
Being open about mental health connection to concussions may bring awareness and help to support athletes.
Athletes would do very well for their own health if they would be honest about concussions. That's what we try to impress upon them, is that if you are not honest and you keep playing, you really could ruin your brain.
As research continues and sports return, discussion, support, and prevention of concussions is important to the fight to save lives. Jackson Lauderay, Cronkite News.
The suit is being considered for class action status. It would cover all ASU players from 1952 to 2015 who were diagnosed with certain diseases or disorders. You'd have to check the records to know for sure, but it's probably pretty safe to say no baseball player ever got a rookie card at 79 years old. Well, Dr. Anthony Fauci did. That's right. A graphic artist in Chicago designed 10 baseball-inspired trading cards that honor the nation's top infectious disease expert. David Stokes says he was inspired by Fauci's leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic. Even though the cards show Fauci in his professional role, they come at a time when he has crossed over into baseball. Fauci threw out the first pitch last week to open the abbreviated 2020 Major League Baseball season. Stokes says he's already sold 100 sets of the cards for $16.50 on Etsy, and he plans to print more.
He seemed like a natural choice to create some art and just to create something to recognize everything that he's doing. I've just ordered another set that seems to be moving pretty well. too. So I'm really touched by the love for Dr. Fauci and for the Cards.
More Arizona sports teams are set to resume play today, but local sports broadcasters won't have the same setup as usual. Cronkite sports reporter Caleb Bushy explains why.
The Arizona Coyotes are headed to Edmonton, Canada to play the Nashville Predators in the qualifying round. But for play-by-play announcer Matt McConnell, he won't be going with them. He'll be about 1,400 miles away at Gila River Arena, calling the game off a live video feed.
Chance, McGinn over the line. To the front, stop by Ranta.
So I think what we're going to do is we're either going to raise the scoreboard up to the height of the TV broadcast booths so it's straight across from us, or we're going to lower that big scoreboard.
And for McConnell, this workaround is tough to call games.
It's kind of like sitting behind the wheel of your car and you're driving down the highway, and all you can see out of is the driver's side of the front windshield.
McConnell isn't alone. Kevin Ray, who calls Phoenix Suns games for Fox Sports Arizona, is getting ready for the 2019-20 NBA season restart in Orlando, but he will be broadcasting from Arizona.
His three-point shooting has certainly improved over the last...
I think it is going to increase the level of preparation, and certainly is going to change and alter how we prep for the game.
Fox Sports Arizona will show feeds from the NBA bubble in Orlando, and something similar will happen for the NHL games. Kurt Smith, author of Voices of the Game, a look at the history of baseball broadcasting, says what play-by-play announcers are doing today is similar to how broadcasters called games in the 1950s.
And so what we're going to see here, I hope, beginning this week, is broadcasters going back to the future.
Smith says announcers are going to have to use their imaginations to make the games come alive.
And instead of talking about whether a pitch is a two-seam fastball or a four-seam fastball or a launch velocity of a fly ball, who cares? No. Tell me stories. Tell me something I don't know. Make me laugh. Make me interested. That's what I look forward to. And I hope that that's what we see and hear from one broadcaster after another this week.
But Stuart Shea, author of Calling the Game, Baseball Broadcasting from 1920 to the Present, is cautious about how these games are called. He says sports teams are limiting media access because of COVID-19, and that could spell trouble for freedom of the press. Journalists used to roaming locker rooms and clubhouses to talk to players and coaches now conduct interviews via Zoom.
I think it's a huge red flag, especially now because you've got teams that are actually partners in the media companies that are covering them. You've got, the Yankees own Yes Network, the Mets own SNY. I'm not sure what kind of stake any of the Arizona teams have in Fox Sports Arizona, but I'm sure they have some kind of a stake in it. And anytime you've got a team being covered by a media company that it owns, you're going to have a decline in the sort of ability of those workers to be completely free in what they're working on. What's going to be the response?
Ray says he hopes by the start of the 2021 season, there will be a better idea of how he can best call the games.
I'm really hopeful at that point we have a better handle on this, and, different protocols, new protocols to be put in place that would allow us as broadcasters, at the very least, to still be on site to do a game.
The Suns and the Coyotes will broadcast games remotely, and so will the Arizona Diamondbacks. Caleb Bushy, Cronkite News.
That's it for this edition of Cronkite News. For Arizona news updates throughout the day, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and find us online at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.